Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So 2 nights ago I spoke about the collection of the Holy Quran and how it was compiled and some of the history on how the current copy of Quran that we have today came to be, how the dialectical markings were added to the Quran, and so on and so forth. I wanted to continue talking about Quran a little bit, and now to delve more into how one can really appreciate Quran and how one can benefit from Quran. So Quran, as we know, is a holy book. It's a sacred text. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it obligatory to do wudu just to touch the words of Quran. Quran has its own type of respect that has to be observed. The more one respects Quran, the more they will benefit from Quran. There are some adab, some mannerisms which should be observed when dealing with Quran. Now, mannerisms assist you and help you develop the type of respect that Quran is due. One of the mannerisms that we should follow is when Quran is being recited, we should stay quiet. If we are listening to Quran, we should stop other activities and pay attention to Quran. The Mus'haf itself, the copy of Quran itself, it should be placed in a respectable place in everyone's home and has to be treated with respect. The barakah of items, the blessings of things, can leave it when it's not respected properly. Let me give you an example to make this more clear. We have a number of narrations which talk about the blessing of the dirt that comes from the grave of Abu Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam, and that this dirt has the cure for various ailments and has a number of blessings. However, we also have narrations that say when people take this dirt, for example, and they don't treat it with proper respect, it loses its blessing and it's no longer useful. So we have narrations from Imam Sadiq ﷺ, which mention that. So just because we're told something has this tremendous amount of blessings, it can lose the blessings based on the lack of respect that it's given. It's mutual. It's always mutual. It's a two-way street. When one approaches it properly, they will get the blessings that they seek. Quran is such. It has to be respected and understood. When reading Quran, the first thing that one has to understand is that this is the final revelation coming to the Holy Prophet. And it's not a book to be taken lightly. So when you read it, stop and think. Always stop and ponder. However deep you think you can go when reading verses of Quran, you can always go deeper. You can always perceive more. Look at the books of ulama. Use them to understand Quran better. If you don't understand Arabic, use the translation. If you understand Arabic, start to look at the Arabic of the Quran even deeper. Always weigh the understanding of the verses with your aql and see how you're understanding them, if you're understanding them properly. analyze. Let me give you some examples. We have a verse of Quran where it says, Allah yahdi man yasha wa yudhillu man yasha. Allah guides. So this is how it's generally translated, and this is how many Muslims express this verse. Literally, it's saying, Yahdi, guides, man, who, yasha, He wills. So people say, okay, Allah guides whoever He wishes, and He misguides whoever He wishes. وَيُذِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. There are problems in this translation and problems in this explanation. If one takes it as it's generally translated and takes it as it's generally understood, it means that Allah is forcing people. That He guides whoever, if He wants to guide somebody, He's going to guide them, that's it. And if He wants to misguide that person, that's it. And it's all in God's control, and there's no control in the person's hand. And that's why there are a lot of ideologies within Islam that believe that there is a full predestination. There's a lack of free will. Whereas if you stop and you think and you even analyze the Arabic also, Yahdi man yasha wa yudhillu man yasha. It's Allah guides whoever wants to be guided. Whoever it is wanting guidance, Allah will guide them. Whoever wishes misguidance, they will get misguided. And this is a more correct understanding. All the Quran has to be analyzed and understood properly. It has to be looked at in its depth. Hadiths have to be brought so one can understand verses more carefully and more accurately. The Arabic language, again, as we said, should be analyzed. And as you see, as you start to look at these things, you will start to understand Quran much deeper. I want to go over some things in Quran, and inshallah we'll explain some of these points as how they can get the depth there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a verse in Quran, and He talks about how He has laid out two paths before mankind. And then He says, and their choice is amma shakiran or amma kafura. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the person can either go to the path of shukr, or they can go to the path of kufr. When you start to look deeper in Quran, many things open up. So the literal translation here, it says, Allah is giving you the choice, and you can either become thankful or you can become kafir. Kafir meaning disbeliever, as that would be the literal translation. Or the technical translation that we generally use. It's not the literal translation. Looking deeper, one sees it says, actually no. Allah gives you the choice to be thankful or kafir, meaning ungrateful. And so you see they're polar opposites of each other. Looking even deeper, there are many books which have been written about the vocabulary of Quran and about the about the specific terms which are mentioned in the Quran, the history of their words. So one of the interesting things about the Arabic language is that it's a very pure language. And what I mean by pure is that it's not mixed in with other languages. Not that there's anything wrong with a language to be mixed in with other languages. For example, we speak English, and English is a language which is mixed of a number of different Western European languages. Arabic, and then there's also a lecture from Imam Ali والسلام, in Nahj al-Balagha, and he said to the Arab people, he said, you were so lowly before the time of Islam. You were so low that no one ever invaded you. No one even bothered to invade you. Not the Romans nor the Persians. It's interesting because of that, there was no invasion. There's very, very little loan words in Arabic. That there's words that come into the Arabic language that have come from outside of the Arabic language. So there are some, very few. So Arabic has remained largely a pure language. And so thus, meanings of words can be very precise. And there's a detailed history of the words. After Islam, and this is also related to our first discussion that we had on Thursday, after the advent of Islam and the revelation of the Quran, it spurned a drive in the people to truly understand and preserve the Arabic language in order to preserve and understand Quran. As we mentioned last time, they started by Imam Ali والسلام, through his companion Abu Aswad al-Du'ayli, started the first school of Arabic grammar in Kufa. And from there they started to write the dialectical markings within the Quran, the harakat. Other than that, there was a number of other things that started to take place. This also continued for many years, the grammar schools. But the preservation of the Arabic language began. So a number of different scholars of Arabic, they started to go to the desert Arabs, the Bedouins, and they would ask them about words, because the desert Arabs spoke the purest type of Arabic. So they would ask them about particular words, and then they would write down what they were told, and they would compare this, the history of varying words. So they put these together in various dictionaries we call lexicons. There are some very famous ones. In terms of the Quran specifically, one of the most famous is called Mufradat al-Quran. And the name of the author is Raghib al-Isfahani. So Raghib al-Isfahani, he has one of the most famous books on the history of words, specifically words of Quran. And he goes in depth and explains them, what they mean, and the varying meanings that they can take place. So here we said the verse was Amma shakirin or Amma kafura. And we said that shukr on one hand is to be grateful, and kafir on the other hand can be literal kafir, or the technical kafir, which means disbeliever, or the literal kafir, which means ungrateful. Looking deeper, what does Raghib say about the term shukr? So everything in the Arabic language, most of the words, not all of them, can be broken down into 3-letter roots. So for kufr, kafara, kaf, fa, ra. So kafara is the root for kufr. And then it creates a number of different words which have this root in it. Takfir, for example. Shukr, sha, kaf, ra. But what's interesting is that Raghib said that originally, in the very old Arabic, shukr was actually, shakara, which being the root, was actually the first 2 letters reversed. Kaf, sha, ra, kashara. And he said this was supposed to be the exact opposite of kafara. So he said in reality, shukr, shakara, is the exact polar opposite of kafara. Kufr we said it has some different meanings we talked about. Kafara, we said it can mean the literal kafir, the disbeliever. It can mean ungrateful. But the actual the most simplistic meaning of this root kafara is to cover. To cover something. So he said shakara, which was originally kashara. It means to uncover. So literally, it's the two are complete opposite. One is to cover something, and the other one to uncover. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, here, you have two choices in front of you. One, to cover up and hide, kafara, or the other one to uncover and make apparent, shakara. So I see this, we have this poster up here with Shaheed Malcolm X, and he has these two pills, right, in his hands. And one is the red pill and the blue pill. So I assume many of you have seen The Matrix, right? Well, there was two pills that were presented to Neo. Thank you. And the two pills are, you take one, and what happens? You go back to sleep, and you cover it up. You hide what's reality. That's what kafara really means. To make kufr. To be a kafir. To take the path of kafura. It means to hide. Stepping away from reality. To actively live in a fantasy. To not think about what's happening for real. You have that choice. People can forget about Day of Judgment. They can forget about the grave. They can forget about death. And they have that choice. The other pill offered to Nero, he wakes up and he sees the reality. He uncovers. It's the same thing. Allah is telling you the exact same thing in the Quran. There's two paths here. Amma shakiran or amma kafura. Either the person uncovers or they cover up. Either they face the reality and take the blue pill. The blue pill was the one that... Red pill. I'm sorry, take the red pill, thank you. Or they cover up and they take the blue pill. See, if you look at this verse and you don't analyze, see how much of the meaning you miss? See how much lessons there are that you can miss very easily? That can go right over? Because many people say, oh, it just means, you just think, one means one who thanks God, the other one doesn't thank God. Well, yes, that's a big part of it, believe me. Thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a huge part of it. And there's a large number of levels to shukr, to thanking God. But you miss out on these subtleties in Quran, which carry so much weight and so much blessing and so much information. These things which can help you click and move forward. Amma shakir or amma kafura. That you can take the path where you make yourself blind, and it's you who make yourselves blind. And again, it's the same thing. Looking at Quran, a lot of times, without understanding, people read these verses and they think it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who commands people to end up in this situation, or it is Allah at the end. But it's the person making decisions that get them there. The person chooses to cover up. The person chooses the path which makes them blind. The person is the one who leaves the path which opens their sight. Shukr is unveiling. It's to open up. And it has meaning also within itself that when you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you are grateful, it helps to unveil. It opens up the blessings. And Allah mentions that Himself in Quran. that the one who's thankful to God, who makes shukr, Allah increases His ni'mah on them, His blessing. What's Allah's blessing? Allah's blessing, Allah's real blessing is ma'rifah, understanding. Allah's real blessing is spiritual growth. So it is unveiling. That's what happens. When one is grateful, it helps them to unveil. It helps them to go down that pathway. In this holy month of Ramadan, there are some things that you can practice that can help you with this particular act of being grateful, of unveiling. One of them, respecting the parents. We have a number of narrations that equate thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with respecting your parents. Worshipping Allah with even respecting your parents, but thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with respecting your parents and treating them properly. Ulama of Irfan, the scholars of spirituality, they have studied all the narrations and studied all the Quran, and they have done their best to put forward explanations to us that make sense for people like us. And they've said that there are some specific things that are the most critical to spiritual growth, even for non-Muslims. So for the non-Muslims who, for example, end up entering into Islam, or non-followers of Ahlul Bayt who end up entering into following Ahlul Bayt, or followers of Ahlul Bayt who grow spiritually and grow closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are some particular things which are super, super critical. And when people do that, it allows them to make those changes. One of them is respecting the parents. And the grateful servant, the one who does shukr, and as we said, shukr is really unveiling. It's thanking God, but it's truly, the reality of it is to unveil, to uncover, is the one who respects the parents, who treats their parents properly, who follows the Quranic guidelines on how to deal with their parents. They never raise their voice to their parents. They obey their parents. Whatever they ask them to do, they do. As long as their parents are not asking them to do something haram, they obey. Islam asks you of this. Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam asked us to do this. Stand up for your parents when you see them. Do things which make them happy. Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam in Sahifat al-Sajjadiyah, in his dua for his parents, he mentions specifically, he says, Ya Allah, you give me ilham, you give me inspiration so I know what to do to make my parents happy. And this will open all the doors. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built this universe with laws. And whether we like them or don't like them, we can never change them. As we read in the Fajr dua, Ma sha'Allah wa la ma sha'an nas. Ma sha'Allah wa in karihan nas. That it's however Allah wishes, regardless if people like it or not. That's how it is. Just like there's a law of gravity, it pulls down things, it regulates how the solar system acts. We like it or don't like it, we can't change it. We have to live with it. That's the law of the universe. Respecting the parents is one of those laws. Whether you like it or you don't like it. This is how Allah made it. And the consequences are very real. The one who respects their parents, they will be counted amongst those who make shukr. The one who is bad with their parents, they will be counted amongst those who make kufr. It's such an important thing. You know the Prophet, Amir al-Mu'mineen ﷺ, and whose nights of shahada are coming. When he was on his deathbed, and he had a companion come visit him, Asbagh ibn Nubata. He came to visit Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he asked Imam Ali to give him some advice before he dies. He tells him, I will give you the advice that Rasulullah gave at his deathbed. He gave me a command. He told me to go to announce to the people that there are, he said, announce to the people that there are some groups of people, they are not with us. We make disassociation from them. They are not with me. Rasulullah says they are not with me. He said one of those groups is the one who disrespects the parents. Rasulullah on his deathbed and Imam Ali ﷺ on his deathbed. Same thing, same message. Respect the parents. How important it is. The keys to opening up all the blessings in the hands of the parents. I remember one of the ulama, they said every person whose parents are alive, they have 2 angels Allah sent to them in their house. And they're waiting. Allah is waiting to answer every dua through these 2 angels. If they go to those angels with the proper respect, that means the parents. With the correct mannerisms, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open everything for them. Do you understand how much Islam asks for this? And sometimes we think that we are respecting our parents. We don't know what it means to truly respect parents. We have a very famous alim who passed away many years ago. His name was Sayyid Ma'rashi Najafi. Sayyid Shahabuddin Ma'rashi Najafi. He was a marja. And he used to study in Najaf. And then he went to Qom. And he opened the largest or second largest Islamic library and the largest Shia Islamic library in the world. What happened? When the British came to Iraq in the 1920s, many of the British military and intelligence officers, they used to go to Najaf and they used to purchase and take old manuscripts that people had in their homes, or they were in libraries or in museums. As you know, the British collected a large number of artifacts from every country that they invaded. So in Iraq, one of the things that they would do is that they would collect these books. Sometimes they would keep some of the books, sometimes they would burn them. People were very poor at that time. So Sayyid Ma'rashi Najafi, he used to go and work and save money. He used to work in a factory and work extra hours and save money, and he would go buy the books from the people before the British would come and buy them. And they used to tell him, you know, you're not going to make much of an effect. You're just one man and you have very little money. He said, I'm going to put my intention in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I wish to save these books. And as you see, he was this great scholar who ended up preserving all of these books. How did he reach this maqam? And the answer that they got is how much he used to respect his parents. They said even when he was a child, he said when people would come to visit his father, and his father was sleeping, There would be guests there. And his own family members, they mentioned this story. They said one time we had guests come. We told Sayyid, go and wake your father up for the guests. And he didn't come down. Then we saw him and he was sitting at the feet of his father crying. And then he started to rub his face on his father's feet. So they asked him why. And he was a young boy, like 10 or 11 years old. They asked him why. He said, Islam, and we've been taught in our religion and in our culture, when we have guests, we have to respect the guest. And I don't want to disrespect the guest because they're waiting for my father. At the same time, I don't want to wake my father up from his sleep. And I know how much Islam tells me about respecting the parents. So I didn't know what to do. I was worried if I wake up my father, maybe I will upset him. So I started crying and asking Allah for help. And then I thought maybe if I just put my face on my father's feet and then he wakes up, this will be a respectful way to wake him up. So I don't disrespect him. Awliya of Allah, those people who are close to God, when Quran commands them something, like in this case, respect of the parents, this is what level they take it to. And they understand what that means, and that's why Allah picks those people. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows those people to become who they are. Allah knows who to give the leadership to. Allah knows who to put into positions for scholarship and positions of influence and the positions to protect His religion. Amma shakran or amma kafura. So one of the ways, as we said, that you can be shakir is respecting the parents. Take the time. Do things before your parents ask you to do them. If you see they're struggling with something, help them. Just be more helpful. Don't upset them. We have hadith. It said the one who upsets their parents, at the time that they upset them, they've become amongst a group of people who are aq. Aq al-waliday is a very serious thing. We have hadith about that. That's one of the groups of people, this term that they use, aq, which means someone whose parents have disowned them. This is one of the groups that Imam Ali and Rasulullah mentioned, that they said, these are the people who are aq al-waliday, they're not with us. They will never be with us. So the Imam is saying when somebody upsets their parents, at the time that they upset them, until they make them happy again, they're aq. It's very serious, very, very serious. Especially in this holy month. One of the best ways that you can get the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing things for your parents. And inshallah, that way you can become somebody who's shakir and who's thankful to God. And it will help you and open up the ways for you. Allah is the one who has the mafatih al-ghayb, the keys to the unseen, and it's in God's hands to guide you if you wish for the guidance. When you take those steps and you step forward, then inshallah, Allah will open those doors for you.